Howdy, and welcome to episode 33 of T-Shirts and Shawls. I'm Karen, and today is Thursday, July 13th, 2017. So, last time I introduced you guys to our two new kittens. I will just say that they have been a lot of fun, but there has also been just a lot going on with all of the cats the past 2 weeks, so I will do a little update at the end about the cats. In case that is something you are interested in. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. The shirt that I'm wearing for today's episode, let me stand so you can see it, says "So many books, so little time." So many books, so little time. And that's kind of how I'm feeling a bit right now. I am in the middle of a kind of a book slump. I'm just not really spending much time reading, and I'm not super excited about any of the books I've tried reading. So in some ways, this "so many books, so little time" thing is not so much that there are so many things that I want to read, but I guess I'm kind of the so little time. I have not been spending very much time reading. I used to read all the time. I mean, that was my thing. And then when I started knitting, it kind of took over a lot of the time I used to spend reading. So, I've been knitting for over 12 years now, so my reading time has kind of gone down as my knitting time goes up. Of course, there are times when I'm knitting something fairly simple, like the garter stitch sections on my Find Your Fade shawl, that I'm able to read at the same time. So I can combine that. And then I also listen to a lot more audiobooks than I ever did before. And so that helps as well. But as far as just really sitting down with a book and having that be the only thing I'm doing, those are very, very few times that I really devote to that anymore. And part of me really misses that because that used to be such a big part of who I was. And then part of me, just to be honest, I don't really have the patience to do that anymore because my hands aren't doing anything. So that's one thing that knitting really helps with. It gives me something to do with my hands, and I feel like I'm busy and productive. And so that's another reason I just don't sit and only read much anymore. And then part of the other problem is the so many books part. There are just so many books out there. In one way, it's absolutely fantastic because there's pretty much something for everyone. But especially with the self-publishing market, it's easy for people to publish a book now. Easy for people to publish bad books, easy for people to take it very seriously and self-publish their own very good books. And then we have everything that's coming out from traditional publishers. So there's so much to choose from, which can be really great, but can also be really overwhelming. Just too much choice can be almost as challenging, maybe even more challenging than not enough choice. Because where do you start? How do you find the good books? And that's one reason I signed up for BookBub, which I've mentioned before, where I get a daily email of, and they're usually book deals, but BookBub usually is pretty picky about the types of books that they send out. They only pick books that have gotten good solid reviews, so that way they're not sending out just every book that wants to advertise with them. So there's a little bit of filtering going on there, and then I pick the genres that I'm interested in, and then I get a daily email. Sometimes there are like 4 books in the email, and sometimes there are as many as maybe 10, like 4 to 10 books. That's just because I think my picks are like fantasy, historical fiction. There might be 1 or 2 other things in there. So I've really narrowed my selection. And that helps. I'm kind of there seeing a smaller number of possibilities. But really, there are just so many books out there, it's hard to choose. And just a little side note, I think the same thing happens with knitting patterns. There's so many knitting patterns available. It can be super hard to make a choice of what you want to knit because you just have too many options. So I guess I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed with possibilities. And then I'm just honestly, with various vacations and travel, and then with the new kittens, my brain has just been really scattered lately, and I just haven't been able to really concentrate on books. So I've kind of jumped around from book to book, and I've started some books that I think under other circumstances I would really enjoy, but right now I just don't. It's just not quite the right time, I guess. So I'm kind of putting those aside to come back to later when I'm feeling a little more into, I guess, out of the book slump and a little more into reading. So I do have a couple of things that I'll mention. I'll do a what I'm reading, watching section a little later in this episode. But I think what I basically need to do is just, maybe I do need to find a book that I can really get into. Maybe it's a book that I've read before and enjoyed a lot, something that I know I love, and just sit down and read it and try to just get into that book, get immersed into the book, get immersed back in the reading experience, and see if that helps at all. I know with the Harry Potter books, when I first started reading them, one of my friends asked me what I liked so much about them, and I remember telling her that they made me remember why I love to read so much. So maybe I need to go back and reread Harry Potter. I don't know. But yeah, that's just kind of been what's happening in my reading world a lot lately. And so when I was looking through my closet this morning, trying to decide on a shirt for this episode, I came across this one and thought that it seemed really appropriate. I completely had an idea for a different shirt that I was going to wear today, but I ended up picking this one because I want to get out of the book slump, and I think that might actually be the first step into getting out of it, to really want to get out of the book slump. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully I will have a lot more to say in the reading and watching, mostly reading section of upcoming episodes. Today's shawl is my finished, finally, Rice Fields shawl, the brioche shawl that I've been working on. And I gotta say, when I was putting this on to start this segment, I'm really not sure how to wear this shawl. Brioche is really, really poofy, I guess. It's not quite the word I'm looking for. But because it basically, in a sense, it's not quite ribbing, but it kind of acts like that. It's very stretchy, but it also really gathers quite a bit. So if I, swing it around here, that kind of works. Oh, by the way, this is unblocked. So maybe after I block it, some of this will even out a little bit. But anyway, so I could do this, but it's not really fitting over my shoulders super well. So then that's why I thought, okay, I'll kind of put it in the front and gather it up in the back. But man, I gotta say, this is a lot of fabric, which maybe on a really cold day would be wonderful. Fortunately, we don't really have super cold days here in Texas. But this is definitely very just not heavy, because it's somewhat of a lighter feeling, but bulky, I guess. That's the word I'm looking for. It feels kind of bulky. So I'm really not sure yet how I should wear this. So I will block it. I'm showing it to you unblocked because I'm so excited about finishing it. I will block it and see if that helps at all. Now I'm pondering. Okay, so brioche, and the neat thing about this one is that each section changed which order the colors were in. So you can see the gray is the dominant, and then the pink, and then the gray. And then since brioche is reversible, it does the opposite on the other side. So that's really fun. You can wear it either side depending on which color you want to be a little more dominant. I kind of like it better with the gray as the more dominant kind of on the end here. Anyway, so I have to block it and figure out how to wear it, but I'm really happy with how it came out. It was fun to knit. I learned a lot about brioche. I feel more comfortable knitting brioche now after doing this project. The explanations for how to actually do brioche in the pattern were really helpful, so I do recommend this if you've never done 2-color brioche before and you want to learn. This is a good pattern. So the pattern is Rice Fields by Lady in Yarn. So I will link to that in the show notes for sure. But it was a very good pattern for learning brioche. So the yarn I've mentioned before, but I want to make sure to give credit, is Yarn Carnival. The high wire base, I think it's high wire 3-ply. In the I should have looked this up. In the pink is Frippery, and the gray is Punk Rock Girl. So Frippery and Punk Rock Girl are the, wow, my chair just kind of went down a little bit, are the 2 colors here from Yarn Carnival. It was my first time knitting with any Yarn Carnival yarn, and it was, the yarn was really nice to work with. I really liked the colors. The gray one is kind of more of a, as you can see it kind of here, in many ways, kind of a speckled type of yarn. So it's a gray base, and then it has darker gray and even the pink speckles, so it really brought the pink together. So I was really happy with the yarn. So thank you, Yarn Carnival. And yeah, so good project, but you know what? I am so happy it's off the needles. I feel like I've been working on this project forever. It was my Q2, so second quarter knit along project for this podcast, and I finished it 1 day late. I finished it on July 1st. So 1 day beyond the second quarter. But anyway, but I did finish it. Yeah, we'll see what happens after it gets blocked. So brioche, that seems to be kind of one of the things that people are doing lately. And I think that I want to do more brioche. So I have a few other patterns that I've kind of put in my queue in my mind. I haven't actually put them in my queue on Ravelry. But a few other projects that I want to work on just to kind of get a little more experience with brioche, especially doing increases and decreases and some like patterning types of things. Because this one was basically all of the increases take place in the solid section. So I think it's actually, this is the right side. So if you see the solid pink section with the eyelets, that was doing the yarn over increases basically. So once you got to the actual brioche section, you were really just knitting back and forth. No need to do any increases there. So that's one reason why I think this is a good project for practicing brioche, because you don't have to worry about the increases and decreases and everything quite yet. You can get comfortable with just the process of the brioche stitch itself. Anyway, so yeah, I'm planning on practicing more with brioche, trying it out, and possibly using it in an upcoming design if I feel more comfortable with it and able to do some designing with it. So the DFW Yarn Crawl takes place in August, so it is coming up just a little over a month away for the start of it. And part of the Yarn Crawl, last year they started a DFW Designers Collection that goes on throughout the year. So it's kind of a way of making the Yarn Crawl be a little bit big, like take more time of the year rather than just the 10 days of the crawl, kind of expand that experience throughout the year. And the kind of goal behind the DFW Designers Collection was to highlight local designers, which was a really fantastic, opportunity, I think, for knitters to get to know some of the local designers. So basically how it worked is, I forget, there were 14, 15 designers, I think 14 designers and 15 designs that took place in volume 1. And basically, if you were interested, you bought the collection, and each month you would get 1 or 2 patterns that got added to the collection. And then there was kind of a little profile on each designer. I'm saying was, I should be saying is, because this first volume is actually still going on through the end of August. So we're still currently in the first volume. So each month, a 1 or 2 patterns releases plus a profile of the designer. And then there's a knit along that goes along with it. Keep trying to stay in the present tense. That goes along with it, and a few prizes for people who kind of knit the most things out of the collection. There were also ways to earn kind of extra points for using, I think, like local yarn or buying things from local yarn shops. Anyway, so it was kind of the first run, the inaugural run. So I think as a first run, it went pretty well overall. I actually used one of my previously published patterns in the collection, my Lady Birdalac cowl. So it's a lacy cowl that I had both a long version and then a short version. So as part of that, basically, it made the pattern exclusive to the designer's collection for the year. So I had to take it off individual sale, and it was only available in the collection. That current collection ends at the end of August. So after the end of August, so basically the beginning of September, I will be able to put Lady Birdalac available for individual sale again. I know a couple of people who are not in the local area and so weren't interested in the entire collection did want to get Lady Birdalac, so look for that to be available again in September. But I'm very happy that it was part of the collection for this year. A few more versions of it have now been made, so that's always exciting to see. And for the coming year, I am planning on designing something new instead of using a previous pattern. And right now, I'm in the drawing board stage where I'm, having ideas kind of percolate in my head. And because I've been working on that brioche shawl and kind of thinking about brioche, I've got brioche on the mind. And so right now my image is of a hat with some brioche. And I do have more details in my head, but that's where I don't want to give too much away quite yet, especially because it really is in some preliminary stages. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. And I do need to think kind of quickly because we got the tentative schedule for the second volume of the collection. And on the tentative schedule, I am slated for November, so sooner rather than later. So I really do need to get moving on this design because it does take a while for me to design it and then knit my sample and then have it go through tech editing and test knitting and then the graphic design, the layout. It might take, between now and November to have it ready to go. So I definitely need to get moving on that. So that's kind of the next thing that's up on my plate. I continue to promise I really will go back to that green lacy shawl that was upside down. I do think I need to get this pattern for the designer's collection kind of underway first, since I do actually have a deadline for that. And then after that, I'll go back to the lace weight shawl. And then after that, we'll kind of see what I feel like working on and designing. So the other big thing, obviously, is my book that is coming out. So if I look at the calendar, so the next time I record the podcast will be July 27th, which will be after the book has officially launched. So right now, the book is in the pre-order stage. And it officially releases on the 22nd, July 22nd. That day I actually have a book release party planned for the Knitting Fairy, and I know several of you who live in the local area have said that you are coming to that release party, so that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing you. And then anybody who has pre-ordered the book online, I plan to ship it next week, kind of trying to time it so that it will get to you, if not on the 22nd, possibly before the 22nd, but definitely I would like to have it get to you on the 22nd, so that way you get your book as soon as possible. And I can do that because I ordered the books. In looking at the timeline of the publisher, it looked like from when I ordered it to when I got it, I needed about 3 weeks. So I ordered it like 4 weeks in advance, so I could make sure that in case something happened, that there would be no delay and I would be able to get the books on time. Well, guess what? They came in less than a week. So I'm glad I didn't pay for like faster printing, because the kind of the longer term printing that I paid for got here really fast. So behind me, I'm actually blocking with my chair. So let's see, behind me, this stack of books, which you actually can't really see very well. Let's see. So those boxes there are full of the books, not the blue boxes, the cardboard boxes. So those are the shipping boxes of the books. So they are in there. And then over there I have some purple bubble mailers, so that way it'll hopefully keep the book protected. But I still have purple. For those of you who have ordered yarn, I usually send it out in a purple envelope. So I have purple bubble mailers to mail out the book. Those just arrived yesterday. So I actually got the book before I got the envelopes to mail it in. So basically this weekend I will be spending the weekend going through the pre-orders that I've received. I will be signing books. And basically kind of getting them ready, so that way later next week I will be able to put them in the mail and have them to you guys by the 22nd if you pre-ordered. And then for those of you who are coming to the release party, I will bring your copy to the release party. So yeah, I'm really excited about the book releasing. If you have not yet pre-ordered your copy of the book, if you do so by July 16th, you will be and you will get free shipping. There's a free shipping code to use, so make sure you find that and use it. It's on the listing of the book. And then you'll also be entered into a drawing to win yarn, which I have the yarn sitting over here. Let me grab it really fast. Let's see. I believe it's these 3. Let me double check. So I have yarn set aside for the release party as well as for the online pre-orders. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, these are the 3. So if you pre-order online, then you will be entered into a drawing, and there will be 3 winners, and each winner will receive one of the following. Not like all 3. There's one person will receive one skein, one person will receive a different skein. Anyway, so one person will receive Camelot in Taliesin. This is the one that I knit the second tercel cowl out of. I could probably actually even show you guys those. See, I was totally prepared for this, right? Totally prepared. Anyway, okay, so here's the stack of samples of from the book. So the second tercel cowl is this one. It's a longer cowl, and it has little heart lace patterns in there. So one person will win the yarn to make this cowl. One person will win Tristan in Lady of the Lake, so pretty blue, to make the falcon cowl, which is this cowl that has this center cable motif, and then it uses short rows, so the back side is actually, so you can kind of see this better, the back side kind of comes in, so that when you're wearing it, it won't bunch up on the back of your neck. And hopefully that makes the front pattern be able to show up a little bit more. So one person will win the yarn to knit that one, and then another person will win the bright yellow Gawain yarn. That's the damsel colorway. which is what I use to knit the cuckoo cowl, which is the kind of crazy cables. So lots and lots of cables in that one. So one person will win the yarn for this cowl. And while I'm at it, and I have them in my lap, this is the goose cowl. So it has that ruffled edging so that when you wear it, it sits around your neck with the ruffles. Then we have the Formel cowl. This is the cover image one. So this has hearts, which are not showing up as well on the screen. There we go. So it has lacy hearts, and then it also has some increases so that the bottom kind of flares out from the neck. Then the Royal Tercel cowl, it has cabled hearts. So there's that one. The third Tercel cowl uses a knit and purl. Gosh, this red. Reds are horrible to photograph. Anyway, so there's the stitch pattern for that one. So there's that cowl. And then finally the turtle dove cowl, which is a long cowl. So you can see very tall, or I guess tall, I should say it. It's a very tall cowl so that when you wear it, it really bunches up around your neck. But it has hearts on it, and then stripes, and then another textured stitch pattern. And one of the test knitters, Tim, used some mini skeins and in a rainbow, and so when he did the stripes, I think it was the stripes part, he did the stripes part in the rainbow colors, and then he also used the rainbow up here in the heart section. So instead of one solid color for the heart, since it actually worked out, he said it worked out really perfectly. There were 36 rows and he had 6 colors, so he did 6 rows of each color, and so the hearts themselves came out as a rainbow. That his project is available on Ravelry. Go check it out. I love his version. Anyway, so that is the turtle dove cowl. And those are the 8 cowls that are in the book. So if you have not already pre-ordered a copy, make sure to do so by July 16th so that you can be entered into the drawing for the yarn. And then obviously if you're watching this after July 16th, the book will be available on the website to order. And basically whenever you place an order, I will ship out your book. So the nice thing after that is you won't have to wait until the release date. Anyway, so that is what is going on in my designing world. Since I finished Rice Fields basically on July 1st, I have had a little bit of time to get started on another shawl project. So, and Luke is home. If you hear stuff in the background, that is him playing. So anyway, so I picked up the Kryptonite Shawl by, I wrote down the name, Anna Victoria. So the Kryptonite Shawl by Anna Victoria. I am using some of my hand spun yarn, and this is a present for my mother-in-law, so really hoping she doesn't watch this podcast. So this is, it's a really gorgeous shawl, which by the way, if you have not seen Anna Victoria's shawl patterns, there are some beauties, just stunning shawl patterns in there. So go check that out. Anyway, so this one is a beaded shawl. So here is my current progress. I wanted you to be able to see the design on there because it really does kind of build out from the center. It's really gorgeous. I love the design. And then it has beads. So if you can see, there are lots and lots of beads in there. And so far I'm really enjoying this project. The hand spun yarn, there are definitely places where some is a little thinner, some places are a little thicker, but overall I think it was a pretty good spinning job on my part, and I think that it's coming out quite nicely. I did have a bit of an experience with the beads, so let me show you. Okay, so normally whenever I bead a project, I use a crochet hook as my my beading method, and I'm using size 8 beads, or 8/0. beads. So they're on the much smaller side. They're usually used for lace weight and sometimes fingering weight. My hand spun is kind of averaging to about a fingering weight, a light fingering weight, I guess. So that's why I picked the smaller beads. Plus, since there were so many beads, I didn't want them to be overwhelming. So I got my crochet hook out, and I went up to the first part of the pattern where I was placing the first bead, got my crochet hook out, went to put a bead on the crochet hook, and realized my crochet hook was too big. I have a 0.9 millimeter, so it's a pretty small crochet hook, and it fits perfectly in my size 6 beads, but apparently the size 8 is even smaller, and the crochet hook was not quite small enough. So this was in the evening. I really, really wanted to continue working on this shawl. I hadn't gotten very far before that first bead placement, so I really wanted to keep working on it. So I knew that there was a dental floss method, and so I thought, I've got dental floss in the drawer, so I should learn this dental floss method. Yeah, apparently the dental floss method, it's not dental floss like you just have in your drawer. You have to get the special kind of dental floss that has one end that is, I guess, hardened. It's firmer, so that it doesn't bend. It's not flexible. And seeing what you do, I watched a couple of YouTube videos on the dental floss method. Seeing what you use it for, I can understand why you need that end to be stiff, because you're actually placing that in the stitch on your needles. So to show you what I'm talking about, I don't know if this will actually show up, but this is the kind of dental floss. So you can see it's got this flexible but also stiff end, so you can actually insert that into your stitch. I have some now, but that evening I did not have this dental floss. And so I was thinking, what on earth am I going to do? I don't want to go up to the store to go buy this dental floss right now. So how do I solve this problem? And oh dear, I actually now created a problem. So I was trying to think about it and thinking about it, and I was watching some more YouTube videos because I thought, well, maybe I can come up with something else. And indeed, I did come up with something else, which I have now just created a huge problem on in my bag. I basically used, this is gonna take a little time to sort out. I basically thought, okay, so I need to have something that is flexible to hold the beads on, something thin, but then has that kind of hardened end so that I can go through the stitch. There we go. Now I've got it. Now I've got it sorted out. So came up with a needle and thread. So you probably can't see it very well, but a needle and some thread, and then there are my beads on that. And then this was basically a sewing needle, not a tapestry needle, because my tapestry needle that I used for weaving in my ends was too big to fit in the beads. But this small sewing needle fit just fine. So that's what I used. I used the dental floss method, but with a sewing needle and thread. And I will say that this method does work, but there are a couple of little problems. The needle is quite sharp. I mean, it is a sewing needle. So I have to be very careful when I am inserting it into the stitch that I'm not splitting the yarn. That has happened a few times, so I have had to deal with that situation. And then also I've noticed that whenever I'm kind of pulling it out of the stitch, sometimes the end of the needle, because it's just threaded on there, sometimes the end of the needle kind of gets caught a little bit in the yarn. And so I've had a few snags like that. So overall, that method works. So if you don't have the right dental floss, but you do have a needle and thread, if you need to do that in a pinch, it will work. But I did buy the dental floss as well, so I could try that method out. And you know what? I kind of like this sewing needle a little bit better, even though it has some problems. I think with the end on the dental floss, it actually is a little bit longer than my sewing needle. So I'd been doing the sewing needle quite a bit, and so I was kind of getting used to that length. And so whenever I was bending it back over, because basically what you do is you insert it, you have a bead on it, you insert it into your stitch, you pull the stitch off the needle, and then you fold the thread around and basically put your needle back into the bead. So you've got it going into the bead twice. This totally doesn't make sense probably if you've not done it. Anyways, you insert it back into the bead and then kind of pull so the needle goes onto your stitch, and then you put the stitch back on your knitting needle, and it comes off the sewing needle and thread, or your dental floss. I think that when I was bending it over, I was bending over just the stiff part and not bending at the point where the stiff part becomes the more flexible part. And so I created a bend in my stiff part, and basically that was too thick to be able to go back through the bead. So I actually kind of prefer the sewing needle because it is, I guess, more solid, and I'm able to really tell where that bend should come into play. Gosh, I hope that makes some kind of sense if you haven't done this before. So I actually kind of like this sewing needle better, and so even though I have that dental floss now, I've mostly been using the needle and thread to do the beading rather than the dental floss. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think ultimately I do like the crochet hook method better. So when I have bigger beads, I'll probably go back and use my crochet hook. But this is getting me through this shawl, and although there is still more beading to do, it seems like the first two charts had the bulk of the beading, and I've just finished the second chart. In fact, I started the third chart, and the first few rows in the third chart have no beads at all on them, and almost every row of the previous charts had beads. So I have a few rows where I'm not doing any beading, which is making it go a little bit faster. Although now I have so many stitches on the needle that each row does take quite a bit of time. Anyway, so that's the big project that I'm working on. And then I have these sock projects. Still have 2 sock projects. So this is the Must Stash yarn in the Dark Side EPV colorway. So first sock was done, and I'm up to this point of the second sock. There is more in here. I'm basically within my needle holder. I've kind of just started the gray section, and if I compare it to the first sock, I started the heel of this first sock kind of toward the end of the gray section. So not much left to go before it is time for the heel on this one. And so that's something I need to kind of sit down and do, because the heel takes a little more concentration. So I need to have time to sit down and do it so I can get past that point. And then on the other sock project, I'm also on the second sock. And so this is that Houston Fiberfest colorway. This one, and I'm not taking it out of the needle holder, so it's kind of looking funky here, but I have turned the heel, so I finished the heel, and I am currently decreasing the gusset stitches. So I'm doing a heel flap and gusset on this one. And this is the one where when I got to the heel, I went to the other end of the yarn ball and started using that end to do the heel. So that way when I started working in the round again, I would not mess up the stripe pattern. So if you just look at it from this part, you can see the stripe pattern just continues, and the heel does not interrupt that. And I really, really liked that. So in the second sock, I actually had started it at the same place, so my stripes are matching, so I wanted to make sure my heels were matching. And the unfortunate part there is that when I moved to the other end of the yarn on this heel, it's a 4-color sequence. I only use 3 of the colors in the heel. So I had to get back to the yellow to start the heel. So I had to remove the section of the blue here in order to get back to the yellow. And so I had to waste this much of the yarn. I say waste, I do have things that I do with little bits like this. But basically this is wasted yarn. And I'm thinking, with 4 stripes, that wasn't as big of a deal. It was only 1 color that I had to take out. But if I'm using this method and I want matching heels or matching socks, and it's something that has 6 or 8 or more stripes, that might be a lot more yarn that would get wasted in trying to get to that next, or that right color to do the heel. So I think that although I really like this method for using the heel flap and gusset and without messing up your stripe pattern, we'll have to kind of take that into consideration with how much yarn might get wasted just to get to the right color on the other end. And I totally dropped that sock, and okay, there we go. So those are the main 3 projects that I'm working on. I do have the cowl, the long and winding row. Really haven't touched it lately. And then I also have another stealth project that I'm not going to talk about quite yet. I will talk about it in a future episode, but just not yet. And then I have my leftover sock yarn blanket. So this is a project I have been working on for years, and I actually don't really want to unfold it all the way, but it's a log cabin blanket. So it started in the center, and then you basically pick up, knit the rectangle, and then you pick up stitches along one side and knit another rectangle, and then pick up stitches and knit that rectangle, and you just keep going around like that. So these are my leftovers of fingering weight yarn from other projects. And it's a really nice project because each of these sections kind of reminds me of different things that I have done with these yarns. So like I think this one, this kind of multicolored one, was a pair of socks that I knit for my mother-in-law. So anyway, I had not worked on this in quite a while, and I actually picked it up and worked on it this past week because I had a proofreading project that I was working on, and because that is done in garter stitch, it's really easy to just, I don't have to look at it while I'm knitting, and so I can just knit along. And with a proofreading project, a true proofreading project is a project where I'm only fixing any outright errors, things that are, typos, or things that, not, well, it would sound a little bit better if it were written this way. That's not happening in proofreading. It's just the actual errors. And so that means that there shouldn't be very many corrections. So it's nice to actually have something to do with my hands while I'm reading along for a proofreading project, because the knitting actually helps my mind focus so I can kind of concentrate on what I'm reading. But also my hands are busy, and so if I come to a part and I think, well, it would sound a little better if I rewrote it this way, but it's proofreading, so I'm not supposed to make that type of correction. So I just say, this is proofreading, I can't do that, my hands are busy, so I'm not going to stop and do that. But then obviously if there's an actual error, then I do stop. So it actually helps keep me busy with knitting, but also it helps kind of me keep track of staying on target for what a proofreading project should be. Anyway, so I had that. I actually have another proofreading project that I just started this morning, so maybe I'll get a little bit more done on the leftover sock yarn blankets. And those are all the things currently on my needles. I have a couple of things that I really want to cast on. One of them is the shawl, or for me it's going to be a shawl, but the third quarter knit along for this podcast. The theme is fairy tales, and there is a Beauty and the Beast shawl that I've kind of been wanting to knit, so I think this seems like a good time to work on it. So I haven't cast on yet, so but you will see that in an upcoming episode. So I do plan to start that. And then also, have you guys seen the Wonder Woman shawl? It is something that was in hot, or actually it's still pretty up there in the hot right now, on Ravelry, and I believe the designer's name is Carissa Browning. I hope I got that right. Anyway, so it is really a fantastic wrap that has the W for Wonder Woman on it. It looks great. And my sister-in-law, who I don't think watches the podcast, she is a huge Wonder Woman fan, and so I think that it would be perfect to knit that for her for Christmas. So I also have that kind of on the kind of the back burner for, I need to start that too, so I can make sure to finish that by Christmas. So those are kind of some upcoming things. Little side note on the Wonder Woman wrap. So the designer is actually in the DFW area. I don't know that I realized that. Like, her name sounds a little bit familiar, but I looked at her other patterns and kind of recognized some of them. But I'm not sure if I've met her. And that's why her name sounds familiar. And so I feel really bad. So especially if you are watching, I need to put your face and your name together again. So I hope we get to meet, maybe during the yarn crawl or something. So I can see exactly who you are and why you sound so familiar. She is actually listed as one of the designers who's going to be participating in the DFW Designers Collection, the Volume 2. So that'll be exciting. But anyway, I wanted to mention this because one of the yarns that she used for the Wonder Woman wrap is some of Rebecca's Lazy Cat yarn. So for those of you not familiar to the DFW area, Lazy Cat yarn is another DFW indie yarn dyer. And Rebecca is a friend of mine. So anyway, so it was nice to see her yarn get used. But even more exciting is it looks like people really like the colors. So I think she had originally done the red in the design, but she also has the kind of yellowy gold color that she does. And apparently she has been hit pretty hard with orders for these yarns, and she's been doing quite a few updates to get the yarn out to people who want to place their orders. And in fact, apparently she ran out of one of the colors, the dye colors that she uses, and so she's having to wait for the dye to come back in so she can continue to kind of meet the demand. And I gotta say, well, first a little aside, I gotta say, a little jealous. I would love for this to happen with Roundtable Yarns, but I just have to say, yay, congratulations, Rebecca. It is super exciting to see so many orders coming in for your yarn. Really fantastic, and I'm so happy for you. So yeah, I'm going to be knitting my own Wonder Woman wrap at some point. And but I also wanted to make sure to say congrats to Rebecca. Super happy to see her recognized for the yarn, and super happy, Carissa, for your design getting a lot of recognition. So yay for the DFW area. So I have a little bit of stashing that I've done. Basically, I got an email from Must Stash Yarn, which I've mentioned several times already. That she was having a update with her Beauty and the Beast colorways. So I decided to go ahead and get one, because if you haven't figured out yet, if you watch the podcast, Beauty and the Beast is my favorite fairy tale. So this is her Beauty and the Beast self-striping. It is called Beauty and Her Beast, and it has 12 even stripes. And I noticed something on her label that I thought was really neat. She actually has a picture of the socks for this colorway, so you can see how they're going to knit up and the colors and the order that they're in. So I think that's really cool and a really neat idea to be able to do that. So so I got one of those, and looking forward to making those socks. And then to continue with the Beauty and the Beast theme, at my local yarn shop, the Knitting Fairy, there is a local business who does stitch markers, and she had just kind of renewed her inventory of stitch markers, and one of them was a set of Beauty and the Beast markers, and so I had to go ahead and pick up those. And I'm just going to show you in my hand, there are a lot, with the horrible lighting, there are a lot of stitch markers, which I just dropped one in here, and so it's really fun to be able to see all the things. But just to show you a couple of them, there's a little book, because of course Belle loves to read, so there's the little book. There is of course a rose, because that is important to the story. And I saw it earlier. There's a castle. There is there's a candelabra, because of course you've got to have the candelabra. There's a little teacup. I don't know how well you guys are actually seeing these little tiny things. There it is. And then there's the mirror. And And then there are a couple of other things in here as well. So I really, oh, there's Belle and the Beast in here as well. So there's a Belle and there's a Beast. So anyway, I really like these stitch markers, and I was really happy to get a set of those. I basically, I used to not use fancy stitch markers. I just used basically the really simple, boring rings because I didn't like the dangly things kind of getting in the way of what I was knitting. But I gotta say, between Ann Tudor with her glass stitch markers and then some of the things I've gotten in the stitch marker swaps that have happened at several fiber festivals, and then having stitch markers like this, I'm really kind of becoming a stitch marker collector, and I don't always use them. If I know that there's going to be a lot of yarn overs right before a stitch marker, I don't like having a dangly stitch marker then. But I'm definitely trying to use the more fun stitch markers rather than the kind of boring ones lately. And I think I need to cast on more projects and use all of these stitch markers, because I have way more stitch markers than I could possibly have enough projects to use. So I guess the answer is just more casting on. But anyway, that is what I have been stashing. So I mentioned it a little earlier, but the theme for the third quarter knit along, which is going on right now, if you are, depending on when you're watching this, so it is July 1st through September 30th of 2017. The third quarter knit along theme is fairy tales. And this quarter we are opening it beyond shawls. So usually the knit along crochet along is for any shawl that fits the theme, but this time it's any project that fits the theme. So any project that is inspired by or named after a fairy tale. If the pattern meets that criteria, then the project is good for this knit along. We did have some discussion in the knit along thread on Ravelry as to what precisely defines a fairy tale. So if you're not sure if something fits, you can kind of check out that discussion, or you can post on the thread and ask. But anyway, there's a bundle in the group of some suggested patterns, both patterns that I've added as well as patterns that some of the group members have added to the bundle. So if you have no idea where to start, then that could be a place to start. Anyway, I think this is a fun theme. I mentioned that there's a Beauty and the Beast shawl that I'm going to start working on, which I probably should start working on it soon, because the past 2 quarters I have finished my own knit along project just after the quarter ends. So maybe I need to start it a little sooner so I'm not pushing right up to the end of the quarter again. But anyway, I'm really excited that I have some good prizes for this knit along. So basically I wanted the prizes to go with the fairy tale theme. So one of the things that I did is, at my local yarn shop, the kind of in-house yarn is dyed by someone named Allison, and her yarn line is mostly called Saffroni Skies, but she has mini skeins, and she does kind of gradients in the mini skeins, and she calls them fairy tales. And actually T-A-L-E-S, tails. I know, like Mad Tosh, when they do the mini skeins, it's unicorn tails and it's T-A-I-L-S, so that's cute too. But I love supporting my local yarn shop and getting these fairy tales yarn. So I got a set of 5 mini skeins in a nice purple, my hands are in the way, in a nice purple gradient. So starting out with the dark purple and going to the light purple there at the end. And this one in the bag looks like it kind of got a little bit messy, so I'll try to clean that one up. But anyway, so these little 5 mini skeins will be one of the prizes in this this quarter's knit along. I say one of the prizes because I have more. So in what I'm stashing, I showed you the mustache Beauty and her Beast. Guess what? I got 2, one for me, one for one of you guys. So another prize in this quarter's knit along will be the mustache Beauty and her Beast. So I get to keep it, and one of you gets one. Last time with the ley lines, Saffroni Skies ley lines yarn that I sent out for the prize. It was really hard to send that away, and so this time I decided, you know what, if I'm going to get something for the knit along, especially if it's Beauty and the Beast, I can't get one for a prize without getting one for myself. So I did that. And kind of going along with that theme, I also picked up a set of stitch markers for the one of the prizes. So this will be the third, so there will be 3 prizes for this knit along. And instead of the Beauty and the Beast set, I actually picked up the Cinderella set for the prize for the knit along. So this one has, there's like a little wand with a star on it. It has a little Cinderella charm. It has a castle. So there's a little castle. There is, of course, a shoe. So there's a little dangly shoe. There is a little mouse. There is a pumpkin, of course. So pumpkin. Let's see. Actually, there are a couple of, looks like there are 2 mice. Yeah, 2 little mice. There's the pumpkin coach. So little pumpkin coach there. And the bird. I believe it's a dove in the story. And so a little bird. I think I got everything. Anyway, so those are the charms that are on the stitch markers for the Cinderella set. So 3 prizes for this quarter's knit along, and I probably will. I probably won't wait until the very end of the quarter to give away all the prizes. There will probably be a mid-quarter, and it might not happen exactly at the midway point, but at some point within this quarter, at least one of these prizes will be given away. One of them will definitely be given away at the end, and then the third one, it depends, may happen again in the middle, and may happen at the end. We'll kind of see on the timing of that. But hopefully you're excited about the gifts. I'm excited about them, and I hope you're excited about the theme. And I've already seen a couple of projects or ideas for projects. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are coming up with this quarter. Since the shirt section talked about my reading slump, I kind of talked a bit about reading already, but I will say that there is a book that just came out that hopefully will help me with the reading slump. It is the 3rd book in a series by Rachel Kane. The series itself is called The Great Library, and I wrote it down so I could remember. The 3rd book is called Ash and Quill. So this is kind of a, in some ways, there's a little bit of steampunk to it. There's dystopia to it, and there's a library, there are books to it. And I've really enjoyed the first 2 books in this series, and so the 3rd book just came out, I think on the 11th, and I plan to start reading it next. Hopefully, maybe it'll be the book that I just sit down and try to read and enjoy. So I am looking forward to that, and hope maybe that will help me get out of this reading slump. And then one of the books that I just got in one of those BookBub emails is called, and again I wrote it down, Heartstone by L. Catherine White. And it is described as Pride and Prejudice with dragons. I'm a Jane Austen fan. I really like Jane Austen a lot. So I think that it sounds really intriguing to put the Pride and Prejudice story in kind of more of a fantasy background. So we'll see how that goes. I did try reading Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, like when the book itself first came out. I have not seen the movie. And I have to admit, I gave up on that book really early on because I thought the concept was interesting, but I did not think that the writing was very good. Mostly because it seemed like, I mean, you could even tell just from the blurb on the back of the book, it seemed like the author didn't really respect the original book. And I'm not saying that, you can't, respect as in you can't change things and you have to be accurate with the book. It seemed more like poking fun at the book, but poking fun in almost a mean-spirited, not mean-spirited, but coming kind of close to that border of going almost up to the edge of being mean-spirited. And I don't know. Maybe if I had read further on in the book, it wouldn't have come out that way, but that's just really kind of how it felt to me. And so I gave up on it. So we'll see how this other Pride and Prejudice meets Dragons book might go. So again, that might be something that could help me get over this book slump. So as far as what we're watching, since we're in summer, we don't really have a lot of shows that we've been watching, but I had kind of gotten a bit behind on Doctor Who with the traveling and everything. Just had episodes kind of pile up on the DVR, so I had like 4 or 5 episodes to catch up on. And so this past week, I have caught up on those episodes. And I will say, I am not sad that Peter Capaldi is moving on and that a new Doctor is going to be introduced. I am not... He is definitely not my favorite Doctor. I don't dislike him. I just realize that his episodes have been overall kind of more of a chore for me to get through. I hate saying that. But I find that there have been quite a few episodes where I'm easily distracted, where I'm not really paying complete attention to what's going on in the episode. And I'll realize that, I've actually, if I'm not knitting, I've actually picked up my phone and I've checked my email in the middle of the episode. Whereas with other episodes in the past, that really hasn't happened. And so that's been kind of disappointing as a Doctor Who fan. I will say that I have really, really liked Bill. So the new companion, named Bill, she's actually a girl. I really like her character. I think that they've done a good job of making her a little bit naive, very enthusiastic, kind of excited, but also feeling a good sense of responsibility, which in many ways kind of the Doctor needs. I think that, like with Clara, I'll just be honest, Clara, I kind of hate Clara. So that might be some of my kind of negativity toward Peter Capaldi, that many of his episodes are with Clara, and because I really do not like her, that might have also kind of colored how I felt about him. So I will say that I do like his episodes with Bill a lot better overall. And some of the episodes this season have been really good. And I will say, out of the last, I guess, about 5 episodes that I watched, there were some, I think there was one in there that I got distracted on. But overall, I thought that the stories were interesting. Like I said, I really liked Bill's character. Still don't love this Doctor as much as previous Doctors, so I guess he's kind of going out on a high note for him. Anyway, so it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens in the future with Doctor who the next Doctor is. Some of the speculation is that there might be a female Doctor, and I'm honestly not sure how I feel about that. I think that's kind of one of those wait and see moments, see how it is done. And so I guess we're in the wait and see mode. And I'm kind of, the way, I don't want to give spoilers in case you're not caught up. I'll just say that the way they leave Bill's story, I don't know if she would be returning as a companion. I think that's safe to say without giving away a spoiler. But I really hope she does, because, like I said, I really did like her character quite a bit. But other than that, really haven't been doing very much reading or watching of anything. So a little update on the kittens. No, this is not one of the kittens, first of all. They did not grow that fast. This is Sam, or more fully, Samwise Gamgee. And I did want to show him because I don't want this to be all about the kittens. Sam is a super important cat to us too. So I want to make sure he shows up on the podcast as well. But anyway, I think he also wants to get down. Excuse me. Sam's given us a little bit of a scare over the past 2 weeks. He'd been having a few little health issues, And so he's been to the vet a few times over the past few months. And so last week on Wednesday, he was going back for just a follow-up visit to check a level in his blood work. And he seemed to be doing okay during that visit. And we got his actually, I think maybe the visit was earlier in the week, and I got the results on Wednesday. Anyway, but he seemed to be doing okay, and the particular thing they were checking for was great. It actually went in the good direction, and became a really good thing. So they weren't concerned about that. Basically, it was his liver enzymes. But then on Friday, kind of starting Friday afternoon, we noticed that he wasn't really eating. And that is something that is unusual for Sam, because he is definitely an eater. And to avoid a little TMI, I'll just say he was throwing up. And it got to the point where we were worried because he wasn't eating and because of his other symptoms. And so we took him on Saturday morning to the vet, and couldn't really determine exactly what was going on. He wants to leave now. But she was thinking that it was probably something to do with his GI tract. So she wanted to run some tests on him and do some other things. It ended up where I think it was Monday night. So Monday we brought him back to the vet because he was going to get the check, draw some blood for the other stuff. So it was determined that he should stay overnight at the vet's office so he could be treated with basically, what's the word I'm looking for, with IVs. He could get fluids and maybe even some food if he needed it that way, but definitely the fluids. And so they could kind of just have him for observation. He wasn't to the point where we were worried that this was going to be the end, just that he was having an issue, then something needed to be figured out and something needed to be done. Anyway, so as part of the treatment, giving him fluids, the vet also had given him a B12 injection. And he seemed to really perk up. He was eating really well. His other symptoms went away. And so I got to pick him up and take him home the next day. We thought maybe he would have to stay 2 nights, but he was doing well enough. I got to pick him up the next day. So that was good. I was very happy to get him back. And basically, unless he seems to have the symptoms coming back, we're going to be giving him B12 injections for the next few weeks. And then after we did once a week for I think 5 weeks, and then after that it'll be once a month. And then again, as long as he seems to be doing okay, in 6 weeks we'll go back to the vet for a checkup and probably run some labs again at that point. So since he got back home after the fluids and the B12 injection, he seems to be doing a lot better. He is eating. He is back to his old self. In fact, we've been playing with the kittens, and so we have a lot more cat toys than we used to, and Sam's actually been playing with some of them, like little wands with feathers on the end, that you move around. He's actually kind of batting at it and playing with it. He's a 15-year-old cat, he mostly eats and sleeps, and so when he wasn't eating, that was concerning. But anyway, so it's kind of nice to see him apparently getting some energy even. Like I said, it was a little bit of a scare, but he seems to be doing okay. We'll just kind of keep watch on him from day to day, and then keep giving him those weekly injections, and hopefully that will be something that will help just kind of keep him going. Because like I said, otherwise he's been acting completely normal, but normal for him was eating a lot, so not eating was definitely concerning. Anyway, so right now things are looking good with Sam, so yay. And I will be right back. I'm gonna go see if I can find the kittens so I can give you an update on them. So I just woke them up from naps, so I think Wally especially is still pretty sleepy, but here, oops, there goes my chair again. Here are Wally and Eva, and they are doing well overall. There are a couple of things that I'll mention in just a minute. see if I can, here we go. I've got kitties. Anyway, so they seem to be integrating into the household really well. Wally is still a bit skittish, so we're still trying to make sure we, pet on him and love him a lot and try not to startle him, because he does run and hide still, but not quite as often as he was in the beginning, so he is definitely doing better. Eva just kind of settled in right from the beginning. They also seem to be good with one another, and they're getting better with Sam. Or I guess Sam is getting better with them. And so things are looking on the bright side with these guys, except for one thing. So when we got them, the animal shelter did say that sometimes it is common for cats to develop a cold when they are first adopted because of the stress of their new environment. And we noticed that Wally was sneezing a lot. And he continued to sneeze a lot, and then you could tell with his breathing that he probably had a stuffy nose. And then we noticed that his eyes were really watery and kind of had some gunk in them. So we needed to take them to the vet just for an overall visit anyway. And so, I scheduled the vet visit, and we brought him in. And then shortly before we brought them in, I noticed that one of Eva's eyes started looking like it was really watering and had gunk in it. So the vet checks him out. Apparently Eva wants to leave, so I'll let her down. So the vet checked them out, and it turns out Wally had an upper respiratory infection, and so he's actually still on antibiotics for that. But that seems to have calmed down. The sneezing it was happening a lot. The sneezing is very rarely happening, and you can tell he's breathing normally now. So that's good. However, the eye thing is still going on. So we're still treating them for that. And again, with Eva, it's just one eye. With Wally, it's both his eyes. So we're still treating them for that, and we'll probably be going back to the vet either tomorrow or Monday just to get them checked out again, since the whatever medicine we're using right now doesn't seem to fully be working. Anyway, so it's been great having the kittens. They play, they explore, they get into things. I have been laughing so much more these past 2 weeks than I have in a long time. I hadn't realized kind of how much I haven't been laughing until I started laughing a lot more. But I will also say that it's been a little stressful with having basically all three cats having something going on with them, and we have seen the vet a lot over the past 2 weeks. My car now definitely almost automatically goes to the vet. So lots and lots of vet visits, and with the kittens with their eyes, we'll still have some more vet visits coming up. But overall, they're doing well, and we're doing well, and we are glad to have them as part of our family. So it sounds like Luke is definitely done with his breakfast and getting a lot more active. He's in his playroom, and I can hear him, so I definitely need to wrap things up. Thank you so very much for watching the podcast. If you are a new viewer, thank you for checking out the podcast. I hope you will come back and watch again. For you returning viewers, I really appreciate that you spend the hour or so with me every other week listening to what's been going on in mostly my knitting life, but sometimes in other areas. So thank you so very much for watching. If you are watching on YouTube and you like this episode, if you could click the thumbs up underneath the video, that would really be helpful, and I appreciate that. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe. Make sure you do that so you will be notified whenever there are new episodes. If you would like to participate in the third quarter podcast knit along or crochet along, then definitely go to the Ravelry group, get kind of the details for that, and let us know that you're participating. And good luck for winning one of the 3 prizes that will be given away in this quarter's knit along. And between now and the next podcast episode, my book will have been released. So if you have pre-ordered that, thank you so much for that. I hope you enjoy the book when it gets to you, and I can't wait to see the things that you guys make out of it. And I will see you guys again in 2 weeks. Thanks, and happy knitting!